Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm Jeff Howard, and on Zoom right now, I've got Benjamin Carlucci. I'm going to call you Ben from now on, but I figured the intro I would use Benjamin since that's your credit in the films. So hey, Ben.
Dealer's choice. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for logging on. You are out there in Pennsylvania, right?
Yes, Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, which I've heard nothing but good things.
Oh, good. I have nothing but good things to say.
Yeah, I've just heard it's wonderful. I know my friend's wife got a master's degree at Pitt, and
Yeah, no, I mean, we've got a lot of good schools. The whole vibe of the town, it's often joked that it's the biggest small town in the world. So even when you're in the city, it's a very kind of town environment, which makes it a very pleasant place to live.
and I bet and people, everyone, yeah, exactly. People snooze on it, but like, there's lots of wonderful college towns. But when you're a college town and you got a lot of great universities, you end up with a better art scene, a better music scene, all kinds of stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely on the smaller side compared to a lot of other cities, but, you know, it makes up for its size with its quality, at least in my extremely biased opinion.
Not only do I agree with you without even having been there, a smaller scene is always better because you get better access, right? Like,
There are advantages and disadvantages, I'd say. It's much easier to become a big fish in a small pond when there are fewer big fish to, I guess, elbow for space. At the same time, though, like especially in the art scenes, the downside would be that, especially people like actors who really want to grow their careers, often end up leaving for bigger markets, which is understandable and right. But you know, as somebody operating out of here, sometimes I'll be like, all right, I gotta time it right so I get them before they leave.
excellent. All right. Well, talking about that, so I know he's a filmmaker. In fact, you were on the podcast, and I just joked about this before we hit record, but you have been in the last two film festivals in a row, which means you had a film at Sherman Oaks Film Festival last December, and you had a film in Film Invasion Los Angeles in June. So that means I'll name them. So Burying Baby, film I loved, was at Sherman Oaks Film Festival in December 2024, took home the prize for exceptional filmmaking. And then I guess I'm going to call it your follow-up film, although I just learned that you shot both at the same time.
Yes.
So even though, but it took longer to edit, I bet. So that's why it
Significantly.
came. Yeah. I mean, it's significantly more ambitious, really.
Yeah, well, it was. I mean, the sort of story behind it is Jess and I. Jess is the star of both films. Co-wrote wrote Bearing Baby. I think I did some script work on it, but she and I have been working together and artistic partners for a very long time. But we hadn't actually actively made anything in a while. We did a feature together back in 2018 that got a couple delays as they do, especially in 2020. But she moved out to LA in the meantime, and so we hadn't been making things as actively together. So we really wanted to do something together. She said she'd come back to Pittsburgh and we could do it locally. And then as we were sort of putting the logistics together, she called me up and asked if we could tack Burying Baby onto the shooting schedule, because that's been a script that I think she's had that script in some form since I met her back in 2017. And just every time she's gone to do it, it just hasn't quite materialized. So I was like, absolutely, let's, two for the price of one. So we shot Burying Baby on a Thursday and then Lorica that following Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Exactly. Yeah. So Lorica had its LA premiere at Film Invasion Los Angeles in June of this year. Also took home the prize for exceptional filmmaking. And I'm just going to say something silly because I love to be silly, but also accurate, which is it's almost like a Lennon-McCartney thing where like you and Jess went into the studio, each had a song, worked them out together, co-wrote a little, and then at the end of the weekend, you had two songs recorded, but in this case, two short shot.
I will accept that comparison wholeheartedly and without notes. Jess and I are the Beatles.
Exactly. Any creative partnership that survives a couple years deserves it, I think. So that's the intro. And are either film, I didn't ask this before we started recording, obviously, I don't think Lorica still, are they both still on the festival circuit? Are either available online for people to catch yet?
Baby, I think, still has one festival to go, maybe two. I forget the exact current lineup. Lorica is done. Actually, Film Invasion was its last festival. So we finished on the West Coast, and it is available publicly, so you can find it on YouTube or on my website or any of those places.
Excellent. Hey, just fire an email over to me with a link, and we'll make it a clickable link in the show notes. I love
Absolutely.
love sounding like a real podcaster when I say that. All right, so people can check out Lorica, which is great. I highly recommend that they do. And up to you what level of spoilers we reveal. And
Oh, I mean, I'm happy to talk. I mean, it's out, so if people want to pause and go watch it and come back, I'm happy to talk about any aspect of it.
I kind of recommend that, to be honest. But anyhow, so that's the setup. And now comes the question I warned you about, which is here you are, a highly productive, creative writer, director, producer. In fact, you know what? I'm just going to throw in that Lorica. I noticed that your co-writer was someone named Susanna Carlucci.
Yes, that's my wife.
Probably deserves a shout out.
Very much so.
Excellent. And I'm sure you had list your producer as Nikki. Ooh, Gazuski?
So we were talking pronouncing last names for Gashesky.
Gaseshki. I came close. Yeah, I think I give myself a pass on that
It's
one.
okay. She and I have been very tight friends for a very long time, and I spent probably the first like 7 years of our friendship saying it Gasiewski in my head.
Understood. Understood. Well, there we go. So, I mean, I normally don't call out gender stuff on the podcast, but I highly respect the gender balance in your production and writing teams.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Why
that's
not?
just how the cookie crumbles.
Yeah,
I like working
exactly.
with talented people, and I happen to know a lot of talented people, and there happen to be a lot of those talented people who are women.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. So, when did you first get interested in filmmaking? Were you a super creative kid? Were you storyteller first, into imagery first?
Yeah, definitely storytelling was a bug that I caught on early on. I've over the years found little short stories and stuff that I wrote, or books that I would start in notebooks and never finished. And I wouldn't say they were particularly uh, good or original, but I have lots of fond memories of using Lego characters to build custom stories, and I guess sort of like the action figure equivalent of fan fiction. I never wrote fan fiction, but I certainly took my Luke Skywalker toys on some grand narratives that do not exist within the canon of Star Wars. But in high school, I had a friend who was into filmmaking and who somehow discovered that my family had recently gotten our first iMac, which of course comes with iMovie. And so the two of us taught ourselves to edit as we were putting his film together. And I discovered that I really liked video editing. And that sort of just continued through high school. We would make short films, we'd make music videos, things like that. And by the time I got around to applying for colleges, I was sort of looking at majors and trying to decide what I wanted to do. And not only was filmmaking by then definitely a passion of mine, but frankly, I wasn't really good at much else. This was something that like I sort of when I would enter competitions or I would do school projects or I would be in environments where I was making films on behalf of some end. I would stand out amongst my peers and I would get adulation or I won some contests and things like that. And I didn't really have that in any other sphere of my interests. So I just decided, I don't even know if I really had a coherent plan of like, I'm going to be a filmmaker. I just am like, pursue the thing you like, pursue the thing you're good at. And so went to school for it, been working in various capacities in filmmaking ever since.
And right, so for you, and by the way, that totally resonates and it totally checks out that what encouragement is massive when you're a young person. And honestly,
I
even at all ages.
I've always been Yeah, I've always been blessed with very supportive adults in my life as a kid. I had a lot of high school teachers that really encouraged my creative endeavors, especially in my later college years and afterwards. Once my parents realized that I was okay at this, they became some of my biggest fans. Like that. So I've always had I never felt much discouragement from people in pursuing. I mean, there was of course the very good natured think about this career in the arts kind of raised eyebrows, but I don't know. I can't think of a time in my active pursuit of this that I was ever really ever really had a sense of a lot of people in my life saying this is dumb or stupid or a bad idea or anything like that. So I count myself very lucky in that regard.
And did you grow up in Pittsburgh?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
born and raised.
So I'm wondering if it's helpful to not be in LA where pretty much every parent turns to their kids and go, "Do you want to wait tables?" You know what I mean? Like there's I think we're more worried about kids getting into film because we see all the people who come here and, it's tough.
Yeah, there's probably being, the dominance of the entertainment market in LA. There's a ubiquity to that doesn't exist here. The arts or I should say, not the arts, the entertainment industry as this monolithic thing, like we think of LA and stuff. It's this thing over there. It's so if people are into that, usually they end up going over there. And so I guess it's kind of in those terms. It's like the kid in the small village who goes to the big city to pursue whatever. So yeah, I do assume that alters how people perceive it in
And I
terms
think
of
it's
relating
healthier.
to
I
their
think it's
kids.
I think it's great. So before we hop into college, I'll just ask, like, so in high school, did you get your hands on a camera and have a bunch of fun making shorts with friends and
Oh
stuff?
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember where my first digital camera came from, but I had a little like, digital pocket camcorder. We made a bunch of stuff on that. And then at some point I saved up some money and I got a better pocket camcorder and we filmed a lot of stuff on that. And yeah, in high school, I feel like my favorite thing to make was actually like music videos, but it wasn't, I didn't have any local bands or anything. What we would do is we would get like a fake band together. I have friends that would play instruments and stuff. And so we wouldn't even learn the songs. We could just fake it well. And then we would just, I had a couple buddies who were really into like gripping and lighting and stuff. And they had access to a whole bunch of, actually, it was like old stage lights. So we'd set up these ridiculous, elaborate lighting setups with our fake band and then, and I remember one, we were filming in some kid's driveway and we had all the lights running into the house. And again, they were old, like stage lights. So they were blowing the fuses every 30, 45 seconds. And so we had a kid on set whose job was to stand by the fuse box and turn the lights back on every minute and a half or so.
And was
So
it
yeah,
getting up to like
that was fun.
120 degrees in there?
Oh no, we were out in the driveway,
Oh, out in the
thankfully.
driveway. Okay, I was picturing
We
in the garage and like just cooking.
No, that would have probably ended with the house on fire and all of us dead. So I'm glad we were outside for that. But yeah, that was high school. There was a lot of stuff like that. The
But
occasional.
actually, that involves blocking and planning. Like that's already like
It
accidentally
does and it
trying on
doesn't. See,
producer shoes, right?
well, I've always been an editor by trade. That's always been like my core focus. And I think a lot of that came from these kinds of shoots where it wasn't blocked, it wasn't planned. We basically would get there, somebody would be on camera, we just run a bunch of takes, and then I would find it in the edit. I would always find it kind of afterwards. And I think that did end up influencing the way I do films a lot, where I very often end up finding them in post production. But that's always been my favorite part. Is sort of there's an almost puzzle aspect of finding the rhythm of the cut and that kind of thing. And that the passion and love for that has been something that has been there since day one. Again, I got into this whole thing through editing, and that's still what I do today.
And like that's one of the gifts of digital video recording is that all of a sudden young people coming up didn't have to worry about burning and developing film. You know what I mean? Like you could shoot the heck out of it and then edit for a long period of time. But yeah, you didn't have to, you didn't, it wasn't like using Super 8 or 16 and like, okay, like every extra minute is another 33 feet of film that costs 17, you know what I mean? Like
Well, I got
it's
a
really
taste of
cool.
that when I went to college. I don't know if they were just behind the times or what, but my first 2 years we shot everything on mini DV tape. So I did get a little bit of that experience though just a brief taste.
Just a brief taste, but and by the way, I just want to recognize your shout out to, I believe, yeah, because iMovie, when Apple threw iMovie out to the world for free, I mean that was a quality piece of software.
Honestly, for what it was, for just the thing that comes on the computer, it was remarkably robust. Like the base skills of editing, I was able to learn a lot. I don't think I switched to like a real, editing program till I was in like 11th or 12th grade. Like I used iMovie for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, and it completely, and not only that, because it matches up so well with the professional editing systems, it really, yeah, like you said, it was on the job training, right? Because it was, just you can have multiple soundtracks, like it really laid such groundwork. It's very,
Yeah, and
and I
the
know
whole
Windows
interface
had a
was very
version too, like
intuitive.
Windows Movie Maker or something.
Yeah, but that thing was unusable. That thing was barely
Here I
functional.
am trying to be graceful to the Windows users of the world, but
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're great now, but back
well, no,
then.
but still, it was, I'm sure countless careers were launched with iMovie, which is rad. So all right, so you were doing cool shit in high school, and then that allowed you when you applied to college, you just decided you knew you were going to do a film degree.
Yeah, and I again, just counting my blessings, I was homeschooled for a very long time, and so I did the homeschool thing where you get a bunch of extra credits when you start high school and do sort of like a grade ahead. So by the time I got to 12th grade, I basically had enough credits to graduate, but I didn't want to graduate early, and I was. By then, I was in public school, and I was lucky enough to go to a pretty big and well-resourced public school that had things like computer labs with Adobe Premiere, and better camcorders, still camcorders, but better camcorders than I had. And so I spent pretty much my entire 12th grade year practicing the art and learning from the teachers there and sort of getting a jump start on my film degree, which, yeah, is then what I went on to pursue.
Excellent. And I guess was it the kind of undergraduate film degree where you needed to submit some samples? Like, did that also help you? Like, or did they not require samples for undergrad?
So if memory serves, I don't think they required samples to start the major, but about a year into the program, once you've had a chance to make a few things, that's when you submit sort of a portfolio. And there was a term for like the review process to allow you to like stay in the major, but there was like something like that. Again, I think it was like sophomore year we had to do that. So whatever I submitted to that was probably a combination of high school and college made things.
Interesting program that they actually did. I kind of respect that. Like, okay, after, if you're going after this 4-year film degree, if you're just jacking off the first 2 years, you're out.
My guess is that they didn't want to. This is pure speculation. My guess is they didn't want to have that bar to entry at the level of application because there would be kids who didn't have access to the resources necessary to have anything in their portfolio. So I think the idea was get them in the program for a year, teach them the basics, give them a chance to like try it, and then say, yeah, if you want to continue, you got to show us that you have the stuff, you got the commitment, and all that.
Excellent. And it sounds like good pro. You want to name the college?
It was Edinburgh University of Pennsylvania, which no longer exists in an independent capacity. It merged with a few other schools and is now Penn West Edinburgh campus.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Sure.
It is funny to think of college. Yeah, there you go. Colleges merging just like hospitals. God, go figure.
Yeah, no.
And any notable works in during the college days?
Yes, my junior year, I made a short film called Cole the Robot, which I think is the first like good film I ever made, and still maybe one of my best films I've ever made. I've kind of been chasing that for a decade now.
Best
But
or
that
favorite? Maybe favorite.
definitely, well, no, honestly, both. It's I can get into this later, but for a long time, even after college, I feel like I hadn't really found my voice as an artist yet. Like I'd gotten a lot of the technical stuff down. I knew how to make movies, but I hadn't really found what I wanted to say or how I wanted to say it or my own kind of style. Like I was just, kind of generic. Cole is the only thing from my early years that I can think of from that time that had that kind of distinct artistic voice that I'd been pursuing, and now I feel much more comfortable within. But I think it really stood out in that regard, even to this day, among my work. But it also launched my festival career. I didn't know anything about film festivals back then, but somebody told me what Film Freeway was, and so I went on there, and I had like $100, so I just was trying to find festivals to send to, and I ended up again purely fortuitously. the Atlanta Film Festival, which is a pretty sizable, notable fest. I did not know that at the time. They had a puppetry category, which was just you needed to have something in the film that features puppetry or one of the characters be a puppet or something. And my little robot character was a puppet. So I submitted it through there and I got in. Which again, at the time, I didn't realize what a big deal that was. And now in hindsight, I'm like, oh, that puppetry category probably gave me sort of a lower bar for entry that I was able to slip in with. But the student government of the college was kind enough to fund my trip down. So I got to go have the full Atlanta Film Festival experience. And that was sort of the beginning of all of it.
Excellent. How cool is that? That's a great story that you
Yeah.
got that
At
experience in.
Cole is also why Jess Paul and I started working together. There was a indie film festival in Pittsburgh. I was there with Cole. She was there with what I believe she would probably call her breakout film, a film called Immaculate Reception. And we both were thought the other was very impressive in their respective works, and we started working together pretty shortly after that.
She has that skill.
A little bit.
She has hey, look, it even, she makes connections. She spots things that are admirable and makes connections, which I think is I don't know if that's a skill or just an innate talent. But
I,
either
I
way.
think it's a skill that many can learn, but she possesses as an innate talent.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Very cool. All right, so Cole the Robot, you get that festival experience early, which is great. And then graduation comes along,
Yeah.
or quite obviously more shorts while you're still in school, or
Yeah, well, I made one more short in college. I had a senior thesis that was um, a whole nother thing, not quite on the level of Cole, but a good learning experience in other ways. And then pretty much right out of college, I started making shorts, and I just never stopped making shorts. I mean, I produced. I don't even know the number. It was like a minimum of a short a year. Usually it was closer to two or three. And then especially a couple years later when I started doing things like excuse me, like the 48-hour film project, that number would sometimes increase because you get that extra short on top of things that you'd knocked out over a weekend. Um, but yeah, it was short films. It was I started freelancing to make money and
I was
sort
gonna say,
of
so did you go to work as an editor in a way? And
no. I
no.
actually I went straight into I kind of did the career trajectory in reverse order. There was a lot of people who go get some sort of corporate position somewhere, kind of raise the ranks a few years, pay their dues, and then get enough of a sense of the market to strike out on their own and do a freelance career. I accidentally, again, not knowing what I was doing, did it the complete opposite way, where I was a freelancer for 6 or 7 years and then decided I was kind of sick of the feast or famine lifestyle and sought to move laterally into a more steadied position, which it took a while to find, but I was lucky enough to find. But yeah, so it was just a combination of making corporate stuff for money and making artsy stuff for fun, and then I made my first feature in 2018, which was a whole experience. Yeah, I mean that's the last decade has just sort of been a pattern of I just make things. That's the easiest way to say it.
Yeah, you just
I'm trying to think of a pithier way to put it,
you
but
keep
I
making.
just make things. I just don't stop making
I mean,
things.
you got the drive to make films. Does that also mean that you and you did say when I asked you what you were like as a kid, you said it was about storytelling. So I imagine you've got that notebook of ideas and are you always writing on the side?
Pretty much. I mean, I have more like 2-page notes app treatments than I can count. I have some that are in logline form. I have some that are in script form. I've definitely slowed down a little these last few years as been living life and stuff. But I don't know. I keep joking to people that I've realized upon reflection, I don't really know how to exist in a non-project oriented way. Like my whole adult life and even before my adult life has always been defined by what project am I working on right now. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if I'll ever try a different way of living, but that's certainly the way I operate at the moment.
That's the way you operate, and basically you have all the ideas, and it's the ideas control you. Like every once in a while, one of them is just like, "Hey, I'm too good an idea for you to pass up now. I think I'm next, and then you flesh
Yeah, it's
that
any
one out.
number of things. I mean, sometimes it's just a logistics thing. Sometimes I have an idea and it's simple enough and I've got the people and we're like, "Hey, we have the time, we have the resources, let's do this." Sometimes it's there's a film I made a couple years ago called The Shortest Night of Summer, and the incentive for that was twofold. One, I hadn't made any art for art's sake in a while. All the films I'd been working on were either for competitions or for clients or for, I just come off of my feature, things like that. And I really just wanted to make something that was just pure like expression, just something. And I also had that film was born of just like a single image. The last shot of that movie was just in my head and it made no sense. And I wrote an entire story just to get to that image. So it could be something like that. Or sometimes it's other things like it's an actor or somebody who wants to work with me or I want to work with them and we've got sort of a limited time frame. So it's like, hey, let's write something for this person. So I mean, it could be any number of things. There's any number of factors that determine what gets made when.
For sure, for sure. But it's really always the quality of the work or a situation, right? Sometimes you are meeting a situation, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've always been a very creativity born of constraints type. That's why I enjoy things like the 48 where you have these very specific parameters you need to operate within. I find that very engaging. I enjoy that kind of challenge.
I mean, I know I'm biased, but I am a big fan of constraints for, I don't know. And I gotta admit, like, I think that's often why people's early work is I can name a couple famous filmmakers who the early stuff I love, and then when they had no constraints, the work kind of suffers.
Yeah. Well, because it forces you to do the best with a limited number of things. And when you have an unlimited number of things, you rarely have the time or concentration to do the best with all of them. Um,
Yeah, yeah. And when with no limits, all of a sudden, yeah, there's no desire to like, well, let's really make the script. Let's just narrow it down to what it really needs to be. It's very
yeah.
easy to fall in love with the smell of your own farts when you've got don't have to worry about budget and lots of things.
Yeah, Lorica broke some of my cardinal rules. I often joke I refuse to make a film longer than 8 minutes because there's almost no short film that I'd ever want to make that needs to be longer than that. And so Lorica as a nearly 15-minute film is a big exception to my rule of the last several years.
For sure, for sure. And Lorica was one. Should we talk about what it was born from, or do you want to mention? Were there any other? There was a feature before that.
Yeah, I made a feature. We shot it in 2018. It was called Galatea. First feature, again, very good learning experience. Took a really long time to come out. We had the film finished by 2020, but as I'm sure you're aware, not a lot of things were happening in 2020. Not a lot of festivals, not a lot of movies coming out. But we sold it to a distribution agent around then, and in a story that probably deserves its own podcast someday. The film did not end up coming out until 2023, which is like I said, a whole thing unto itself. But yeah, we did that, and then I don't know. Are you asking just in terms of like other notable films over the
Well,
years, or?
well, and also I just didn't want to skip over the fact. You're talking about all the shorts, and also just sort of about your ambition. Like it takes a lot to make a feature. That
Yeah, well, it takes a lot of ignorance. No, no, it's you know, I'd say it was both like a positive and a negative in that sense, where it was like I'd done a bunch of shorts by that point, so I really felt like, oh, it's time to do the next big thing. But it's actually, in hindsight, like it could have been a place where I almost wish I would have had more constraints because I feel like people who have to wait a little bit longer before they get to that level. Again, they have that artistic voice a little more developed by the time they get there. And their first feature may be lacking in terms of technicality or in terms of, the quality of the camera they shoot it on, but it's very distinctly their voice. That is the biggest criticism I have for myself looking back at that. In many ways, I'm actually fairly proud of the technical quality for what it was at the time. I'm very proud of things like the VFX in it, I think, are like for our budget, they're next level. The soundtrack is really good, but the biggest thing it's lacking, again, this is just for me, is that artistic voice that I think I was still very much finding in the process of making that film, and especially in reflecting on it afterwards. And honestly, the feature that I just shot earlier this year, a big incentive to do another one at the indie level, was to have one that better represents, in my opinion, who I am as an artist and the kinds of things I want to say as an artist, if that makes sense.
For sure. And to be honest, I mean, look, 5 years and you're still a fairly young person, at least you're young to me. But I mean, at that from 18 to 23, I'm sure there was a lot of artistic growth in those 5 years.
Yeah,
So that when it
that's
comes
the
out and you're like, I was pretty good 5 years ago, but man, I could do better now, especially
that's
with the voice.
it's the unfortunate reality of the way it came out affected my relationship to my own work in a way that's not at all fair to my own work, right? It's not even that I'd grown. I mean, it is that I'd grown both technically and artistically and everything in those 5 years. The problem was the film, in the relationship it had to the world, wasn't a film from 5 years ago. When it came out in 2023, it was the next biggest, most recent thing, but it was a 2018 project. I tell people to be like, imagine getting 5 years into your professional career and then having to represent a film you made junior year of college as like your most recent biggest thing. And so it sort of caused this like disconnect between my pride for having completed a feature, which anyone who finishes a feature should be proud. That is hard work. And my desire to, I'm out here promoting it and stuff, but I always felt like I was like caveating the promotion and in doing so, almost like degrading the film in ways that the film did not deserve. Jess and I talk about this all the time because we have such distinctly different, because that film was very much our baby, and we have very like different relationships with it just because of that. She's much better at being proud of it than I am, and I love her for that, and I need her for that, because if I was left to my own devices, again, I'd be too disparaging. But I don't know. It's a very fascinating thing to sort of reflect on. And I am very happy that I made it, because again, it taught me a lot of really important things. And like I said, the work that's come since and the work that's gone into this most recent feature are in large part due to the experiences I had on that film and the lessons I learned through it. And I'm sure as time continues to pass, I will be more forgiving and kind to, it, even in the circumstances that it came out with. But yeah, it was a big
That's
stage
how it
on the
works, right? I think
journey.
that's how it works is we make something and then for a while all we see is the things we could have wanted to be better. And then I don't know, yeah, time heals that wound. 'Cause-
Yeah.
and also experience teaches you actually for that moment in time I did great. So
Yeah. No, and like I said, the things I'm critical of have very little to do with the movie and very much to do with how I approach them. Like, if I could give advice to my younger self, the thing I would encourage is the seeking of that artistic expression. I thought I've turned more into an artist as I've gone on, and sort of away from like I don't know. When I was the really silly way to put it is like, when I started, I think I wanted to make movies, and now I think I want to make films. If I can
I
put
get
it in
that. I
pretentious
get that
terms
right.
like that.
You were and I already compared you to the Beatles. I almost did another funny comparison that I passed up. But I mean, yeah, I mean, there's nothing funnier to me than when I won't name any of these famous filmmakers, but when someone goes back and recuts their earlier work and comes out with that director's cut, and you're like, you made it worse, actually. Like
Yeah,
honestly,
yeah.
your instincts when you made it, that's what it was meant to be. And going back and trying to put your older self into it actually diminishes it.
Well, and that's why I draw the line along the terms of expression, right? Like, I've got a couple films from right out of college that are not amazing technical quality. They're not super well directed. They're not super well edited, but there's a couple of them that I have so much love for because I recognize them as such genuine exercises in self-expression, right? And I can completely set aside any technical flaws surrounding that as a product of their time and just enjoy, hey, I remember what it was like to be 22 and what this felt like, and I'm so happy I preserved that on film. And it's in films like Galatea where that felt like less of the priority, and I was spending more time trying to be something I wasn't. I was trying to make my dialogue more like Aaron Sorkin. I was trying to make the movie fit in a sci-fi genre better. so I could sell it to a distributor better. I was seeking all these things that are perfectly valid things to aspire to. When it's a first feature, Kevin Smith's first feature, you could show that to anyone familiar with his work, and the first thing they would say is, "Oh yeah, Kevin Smith wrote that." It doesn't matter that it's black and white and there's editing mistakes and there's all the it so distinctly carries his artistic voice. You've got that with his first stuff. You get that with Linklater's first film. My favorite example is actually Damien Chazelle. If you've ever seen Guy and Madeline on a Park Bench, his first feature, it's very cheap. It's 8 millimeter, I think, black and white. But the themes of the movie are about artistic struggles, and one of the characters is really into jazz, and it's a musical, and it's like, so for all the technical foibles, it is so distinctly his voice, right? And I think that's what especially first time feature filmmakers should be focusing on more than anything, because the technical stuff comes with time and with experience and with all that. But the thing that sets you apart, the thing that distinguishes you as an artist, as cliche as it sounds, is your artistic voice. So
No, it is not a cliche at all. I'm backing you 1,000% on that, because that, and also even especially at the independent level, that's really the only, if you want to be crass about it and talk about art as commerce, that actually is your only commodity, is your voice.
yes,
Because it's at the
100%.
independent level, that independent vision, that independent spirit, which there are awards named after that, like that is really all you've got for the audience, right? Because
Yeah.
you can't outdo the jillion-dollar budgets. You can just tell a story that those motherfuckers won't tell.
And I'm sure you probably know this better than anyone, having run film festivals for as long as you have and seen as many films as you had, that, you're going to get a million films of super high technical quality and a million films that some kid only had, their iPhone and their, dad's work lapel mic to make. And the thing that distinguishes them is not the technical quality. There are terrible films with high technical quality, and there are fantastic films with low technical quality. At that indie level, especially in these kinds of artistic spaces like film festivals, it really is that distinguishing voice that distinguishes you.
And yeah, and originality and I'll just say the lack of corporate filter.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
I'll share this. I won't name a name, but I actually through coincidence found out that an 81-year-old gentleman I play tennis with is in the American Society of Cinematographers and guest lectures at USC. So I won't say who he is, but he and I shared he was very interested. He's like, "Oh, I found out you were in Sherman Oaks Film Festival, blah, blah, blah," and we had a nice long talk. And he even said to me, a lot of the stuff these kids at USC make are technically brilliant and soulless, because they
Yeah.
don't care about story. They're just trying to make a Hollywood level look and feel.
Yep.
And if you're not telling a story that engages your audience, there's just no reason to sit through it. And they're
Yeah.
just doing, it's just their calling card to say, like, here, give me a big ass budget. But if you're not a great storyteller, you don't deserve a big ass budget.
Yeah, there's no point in making a beautifully rendered piece of technical storytelling if you have nothing to say.
I've seen so many of them.
I have to.
And they're used to, I don't, well, anyway, I won't bother telling you that story. But also, it sounds, so I am cheating because I have two monitors. I have your IMDb page up on the other side. And it looks like when Galatea came out, you were in the heat of a very productive period, because yeah, there's quite a few shorts right around that 2023 date that
Yeah, I'm going to be honest
coincided
with
with
you.
it.
I don't know who updates my IMDb page, but somebody does. I got a buddy who used to do it. I don't know if he's still doing it and just not telling me. But
Actually, Lorica's not on there.
actually, I'm going to pull that up. I don't even know what's
But in 2023, besides Galatea, there's Aramis the Beginning, The Shortest Night of Summer, and Burying Baby is
yeah.
2024. So, talk about productivity.
Oh man, I need to it has my old last. I changed my name when I got married, and my IMDb page does not reflect that.
That threw me for a loop. I had to get to it through Bearing Baby.
Yeah, I actually. So what's funny about that is I believe it was 2020. It was either 2022 or 2023. I think I made five or seven something like that films that year because I had yeah, we did Aramis. Let me see if I can remember all these. We did Aramis, we did Lorica, we did Burying Baby. I did two 48s that year. I did the 48 in the spring, and then I did the Yes We Can competition in the fall. And then we did there was a nonprofit I was working for at the time that we did a short film for. And then I feel like there's one more that I'm forgetting. But yeah, that was a year where the year before I'd barely done anything. I'd kind of been in between a lot of things. And so I remember it was almost like a New Year's resolution. I'm like, I'm going to say yes to every project. And I did, and I was very tired by the end of the year, but it was very cool to be able to look back on and see that much work.
And by the way, kudos to you because saying yes is huge.
Yeah, I mean, again, people. There's different seasons in your life. Sometimes you need a bit of rest. Sometimes you need something to get you off the couch. And saying you're going to say yes to every project that approaches you is certainly a way to get off the couch. But sometimes you need that. Sometimes, like especially if, like I said, where I was at that point, I very much felt like my creativity was sort of in a holding pattern, and I just was like, all right, it doesn't matter what I'm making. I just need to get back to making stuff. And so we did.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, and then came the fateful weekend that you made both films I've seen. It is so cool that Bearing Baby was a 1 day shoot, and then you did
Yeah.
Lorica over the next 2 to 3.
Yeah, it was Thursday through Sunday. So we shot Bearing Baby that Thursday and then Lorica Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, and Lorica very ambitious. I mean, obviously I hadn't seen the feature, so but Lorica is a very fleshed out story and very I'll just stick with the word ambitious. Like that's
Yeah, it's not my usual style, I'll be honest. If you go through, my 48s, I've got, quirky movies about boxing chess players and musicals about LARPers in the woods. And I mentioned earlier Cole the Robot, which is about a little robot who wants to be a musician. So I generally have a kind of whimsical aspect to most of my work, and even stuff like Burying Baby, which deals very heavily and directly with grief, still has those sort of elements of levity in it. It's got a couple jokes. Lorica's the first film I've ever made without a single joke in it. And again, like I've made films on serious subject matters before, but I'm not sure I've ever confronted them quite this directly or viscerally. So it was a very different experience, but I can honestly say that weekend was the most rewarding 4 days of filmmaking on set that I've had in my entire life. It was just one of those things where we had all the right people, everyone was in all the right headspaces. It all coalesced so beautifully, and I was able to lean on the cast and crew in a way that we're not usually privileged to in the indie space because we're always wearing 20 hats and doing 100 things. But it's one of the only directing experiences in my creative career that I can think of where I was able to delegate the logistics of everything to all the department heads and have them do their things, and I was able to just sit there, work with the actors, and direct. And it was such, yeah, it was just such a wonderful. I don't have any good adjectives for how wonderful it was. It was just such a rewarding shooting experience.
And was that a result of having done it long enough to have that many people you trust at that
Yeah,
level?
yeah. It was just the right. Again, it was just the right timing. The right people were available. A lot of them I've been working with for a long time. A couple of them I hadn't actually worked with hardly at all before, but were friends of friends. My co-producer Nikki, who we was struggling to pronounce her last name earlier. She works locally in the industry here and has a lot of connections and a lot of friends who work on the more Hollywood side of things. Like I said, I tend to work more in the private sector, but a lot of them who I'd either worked with in limited capacities or here and there came out to do the movie with us. So it was just a phenomenally talented and dedicated crew. And like I said, that just enabled me to do the rarest thing there is in the indie world and just direct.
Huge. Absolutely huge. Absolutely huge. Excellent. And then And then you went right into, and then a year later, you're shooting a feature. I mean, although I guess should we talk about Bearing Baby and Lorica's life on the festival circuit and how that's been, or should we jump
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
right into the project that came after? Up to you.
We could stick with Lorca and Baby for a sec. But yeah, Baby, like I said earlier, I think was something Jess had sort of kicking around for a long time, and so we sort of reworked the script a little bit to find the focus of the story and stuff. And but it was really fun actually because when I first got out of college and I'm making short films, it's me and three friends and a camera, and we got nothing to work with, right? And so if you look at my films from like 2016, 17, 18, a lot of them are just conversation pieces. It's like two people in a location having a conversation, very character centric, but part of that's just the logistics. There's nothing else we're capable of doing. And Baby was very much written in that vein because it was written back then when those were the kinds of movies we were making. So it was a really cool experience to, as a 2022, whenever we shot, a 2023 filmmaker, with the resources and the experience and the things we had access to by that stage in our artistic career, to go back to a script from like an earlier stage of our development and make it with those modern tools. That was just a really neat thing, and I think it felt very symbolic of kind of how far we've come as artists since that time period to render a script of that style with our current skill set and experience. So in that sense, and in others, I mean, and in just like getting to work with Curtis and Jess in that capacity, it was a very it was a very lovely directing experience because it's all just a balance of emotions, right? That film where they're basically crying the whole time, like it.
Oh, we got a Zoom pause,
It's
right?
it's all this sort of like working in that. Oh, you're fine.
Yeah, we're good. You returned to me, but you did get cut off for a second there.
Oh, sorry. Where do you want me to pick up from?
Oh, I don't know. You were I actually Zoom froze you when you were
Oh,
saying
Zoom's telling me I'm talking too much.
no. It's the whole wow. I was into what you were saying too, so I don't know why I can't remember it. But it was somewhere along the lines of the emotions and
Okay,
well,
okay.
whatever.
So yeah.
I'll just respond because what I was gonna add was that because Bearing Baby is you do such a good job as a director capturing genuine emotion and the genuine emotion of the situation and of the characters comes through. I think that's what really makes it speak to the audience. And I was actually going to ask you like based on what you just said of you used your 2023 skills with a concept that you might have done when you were younger, like you were able to nail those emotions more successfully, right?
Oh, significantly. Yeah. I mean, I'm far more acquainted with grief in 2022 than I was in 2020 or 2017. So I
Holy
definitely
crap,
think,
yeah.
yeah. So I definitely think the film it benefited from the genuineness that we would be able to tap into with a little more life experiences. Because when you're in college, you want to make things that emotionally impact people, but you end up like, I can't tell you how many films I saw and still see in festivals that are about like topical like diseases, and you can tell the difference between the ones that the person actually experienced or the one who just said, "Oh, Alzheimer's is tragic. I'll make a movie about that." And it's sort of that faux emotionality. I think is so clear on screen, and so when it comes from a genuine place, it's much easier to appreciate.
I don't always use Alzheimer's and cancer for a joke, but I will just share with you that as I have personally experienced, I have cared for a grandparent and then a parent with dementia and Alzheimer's, and I and my wife are both cancer survivors. So when our film festivals get one of those half-assed stories where a person uses those subjects because they think they and then they're completely untrue to the
Yeah.
experience. Oh, I am the harshest critic. You wouldn't even believe how harsh I am.
I
I
mean,
even
yeah, not to tangent on that too much, but people
we even
forget
we
that
even
they
had
need.
a staffer like do a brilliant job directing a script that she was given. And then she sent me like the rough cut. And I said, "You did a wonderful job directing, but I would bet you $1,000 that the screenwriter who brought that script to you had never experienced cancer." And then she wrote
It
back an email back to me, goes, "He didn't. How bad is it?" I go, "Oh, it's terrible."
yeah,
I was literally, I'm not sure I said it that harshly, but I was like, literally like, this, this is just like, they didn't even research it. They didn't even talk to anybody. And she's like, "You're right, you're right." And I'm like, "But you did a great job directing." It's like, it's tough, but so I had to share that with you because you literally expressed it. Like,
Well, I think people forget that a tragedy in of itself is not a story. People experience tragedies as part of their story, but there are too many people who take something, even if it is genuine, even if it did happen to them, and think if I depict this sad thing on screen, it will tell a sad story, forgetting that the story can involve that sad thing, but is not in of itself just that thing.
yeah, and grief is one of the most powerful human experiences.
Yeah.
It's really one of the most powerful things for any human being. I believe we have proof and evidence of grief in the animal kingdom, even. And and yes, it's super fertile. But as you said, you need more than grief. You need an actual story.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, that was the joy and the challenge and the, bittersweet beauty of getting to direct a film like Burying Baby, where it's just sort of a very simple meditation on a moment of grief. And there's not much more to it than sort of sitting in that moment with those characters and watching them. It's not even like we're not watching them overcome the grief completely. We're not watching them, do much more than just taking that first step. But that first step is a difficult one, and anyone who's been, in a grieving situation as mundane as one, and normal as one of like losing a pet versus one of losing a family member, there's commonalities between the healing from those experiences, just to different degrees of emotionality and pain and time and all those things. So yeah, it was a lovely directing experience, and getting to work with talented actors like Jess and Curtis in a space like that is such a privilege, man. It really
Yeah.
is.
Well, and you made them look great, and you it's wonderfully made. So bravo. And then the next day you start
Yeah.
in on an and a very intense drama.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, yeah, it was
Because
intense. It was.
Lorica, I mean, I don't even know how to dance around the subject of Lorica,
No, don't
but
dance around it. Just
but your I'll go with the log line that was shared with the film festival, which is a young priest is confronted with the horrific abuse perpetrated by a mentor. So there we go. We got the words priest and abuse.
priest and abuse, clergy
So
abuse. It is a clergy abuse film.
clergy abuse film, which is which is intense and timely and important and also human.
Yeah, it's a far too common experience. It's when we made it, it felt very timely when we were making it. It feels just as timely now, years later, when it's come out. And it's making serious films like that and then taking them on the festival track sort of invites a degree of, as weird as it is to say it invites a degree of intimacy from the audience. I remember years and years ago we made a film that dealt with suicide, and when we took that film on the festival track, people would just sort of come up to us afterwards and just sort of start sharing their experience, kind of apropos of nothing with that subject matter. And it was similar with Lorica. We would hear not so much stories of people experiencing directly what is portrayed in the film, but a lot of stories of proximity to those kinds of incidents, or religious deconversion or deconstruction is the term. Or people who are still in the faith and struggle with, again, the proximity of organizations they're a part of to scandals like this. So yeah,
And
I
I'm
don't know.
just going to
It's
jump in and
Go ahead.
add what I find particularly compelling and brilliant about Lorica is that it feels so I am not a person of faith, and I'm actually a little bit of an asshole. No, I mean, I don't judge faith, but I will say that instead of being about scandal, it really does feel it's a film about protecting faith in the face of this kind of abuse.
Yes. Well,
And
because
for me, that is what when you present a character directly quoting the New Testament and it is speaking to my heart, I'm like, bra motherfucking vo, because like getting me to feel something there is a huge accomplishment. I swear to God. Like,
somebody made a joke about that to me. I forget what festival it was at where they said the most powerful thing the film does is give non-religious people a religious experience or
and
something like
that's not
that.
totally wrong. And I love that I love that I just think it's really important in the way you told the story. And obviously the way you and your wife Susanna wrote it was that it wasn't critical of faith, it was critical of the evil in some humans.
Yeah.
And it's not blaming the faith for that person's activity, because that is honestly what's incredibly unfair in this world is that people try to blame. Now, there's a lot of blame to go around in the structure of the church.
Well, and that's the thing. I think that is the thing that was our prime target was certain aspects of institutional cover-ups for sure, but also sort of the institutional response, right? When you look at real life examples of this, real life situations like, you know, the very famous, the Catholic Church scandal that Spotlight exposed back, you know, a million years ago, or more recent ones like the big one that happened in the Southern Baptist Convention, or any number of the dozens and dozens of highly prominent charismatic and evangelical figures that have gone down in scandals like this. The pattern you're always seeing is institutional cover up. It's the churches that immediately respond and discipline and remove the person from the ministry don't have this like pervasity to the how many of these scandals happen and keep happening. It's the thing that we were really going after, if we could be called, you know, if you could be said that we're condemning anything, is those responses from institutions that prioritize the preservation of the institutional power over the safety of the victims of this kind of abuse. And it was important to us. You know, my wife and I are both very religious people, though we're friends with plenty of, as you would call them, assholes. You know, but we
Well,
but
I would normally call myself a heathen, but yeah, exactly.
yeah, those two.
I
Yeah,
just
well,
mean
like,
that. And yeah, I was. You got my.
no,
joke.
you're fine. We're all heathens to somebody. But no, but it was very important to us in terms of approaching this, of approaching it from within, right? Because when these stories are usually tackled, they're generally tackled either from within in a very defensive posture of you know, defending these people and trying to make up for it or whatever, or it's a very outsider perspective, like the movie Spotlight, which is a fantastic movie, but it's not like a priest going after other priests, right? It's a bunch of independent journalists kind of revealing the scandal. So finding, for lack of a better way to put it, finding the Christian response to clergy abuse was the thing we were really looking for. How do we call this out from within? How do we condemn these actions? How do we, you know, try to take down these abusive leaders without, like you were kind of getting at earlier, throwing out your faith with it, or I guess what's even like what's a faith-based biblical response to these kinds of atrocities. And we found a lot of that in things like imprecatory psalms and in the dozens, if not hundreds, of passages in scripture that are focused on lament and on grief and on crying out to God for justice. And I could go on about that forever and ever. But yeah, that was a very important priority for us, is that we are like, this is not outsiders looking in. We are insiders calling out our own. And that was a very, very important perspective to us as we were writing the script.
And I think that's what makes it fresh and original and unique. I mean, maybe there could be other people who've done it, but I haven't seen it. But also, yeah, you didn't have your priest go to a reporter or go outside the church. Your young priest does use scripture
Yeah.
and I found that super powerful. So yeah, that's I think that's so at the storytelling level, you had a wonderful instinct there, and then you shot it well and edited it well, and of course it's well acted. So, and I imagine you've had, and like you said, you've had a really rewarding festival run because you made something genuine enough that people come up to you afterwards, and what was genuine in your film spoke to them.
Yeah, I'll shout out your festival because Film Invasion, I think we had the longest and most involved and most enjoyable Q&A we'd had at any festival yet. But even more than that, I don't think I'm pretty sure in the little after party right after the screening, I was down there talking, having people come up to me and talk to me for like 4 hours or something after that. I've had plenty of festivals where I've had people come up and talk to me about whatever film I had. I don't think I've ever, I didn't have a voice at the end of that night. I mean, it was such a, yeah, it's hard to find words for like, I keep saying rewarding, and that's the right word, but it's a very weird experience at the same time too, because like, when you're so passionate about something like this subject matter, which I am, and so passionate about how again, we as Christians and we as artists find a voice to confront these kinds of things. Like, I think that's so important. And I'm trying to like lead by example, I guess, in that respect. But at the same time, there's also this constant feeling that this issue and this kind of thing is so much bigger than any one person. And so there sometimes comes this point in the conversation where I've been lambasting some abusive asshat for 20 minutes, and then I'm also just like, man, who am I to say this much about this? Like I don't know. It's incredibly humbling. That's a better word than rewarding. The whole process of putting this film into the world and seeing people's reactions to it, and especially seeing people who have really experienced this kind of thing tell us we got it right. It's very, very humbling. It honestly, it's a film that I enjoy talking about because it's a subject matter I think it's important to speak about, but the actual experience of watching people react to it in a very positive way makes me want to just shut up.
Yeah, and let the film speak for itself. Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. Very much. Even though I have written extensively about it online, and I even, I published a guest column for an advocacy organization a month or two ago, and I haven't stopped talking about it since it came out. But there's definitely a lot of the time where I'm just like, it says enough on its own. I don't need to keep adding to it.
Yeah, and our this English language that we're stuck using all the time doesn't we lack words. Like I always think like, okay, there's a word in German for this, but there's not a word in English because in English, like it's humbling and rewarding at the same time, like because you're grateful that the work, you know what I mean? Like there's a gratitude too, right? You're grateful that the work is received the way it is. But yeah, we don't have, I'm sure it's funny if I'd known any German, like I'm sure there's a word in German that is like one third humbling, one third rewarding, and one third grateful. And it's like,
Yeah, we need more
you're
contract terms like that.
the opposite of Schadenfreude, whatever.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's why we have words that just get transliterated into English because it's like, all right, we don't have a word for that. We're just going to take
Yeah.
your word.
Yeah, savoir faire. It would take me 5 minutes to say savoir faire in English.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, that's very cool. And so now you want to talk about the feature? Are there other
Sure.
shorts
Yeah.
in the works too,
No,
or
no, no, no.
since Lorica, it's been all about the feature?
I'm done. No, I'm not done, but I'm done for a while. I no, I'm sure I'll make something at some point, but I've
You'll
been
do a
building
40-hour
towards.
chase, but right now you might
No,
as
I'm
well.
retired. I'm retired from the 48 too, but I'll
Oh,
come out of retirement at some point. But again, but yeah. So the feature. So in my personal life, filmmaking obviously is the big passion. Filmmaking, it's both the career and the prime artistic endeavor. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm also a very religious person, and years ago I started getting very interested in sort of the academic side of that. Purely armchair scholar perspective. I'm planning to go back to school for it, but I haven't gotten around to that yet. And I've just been reading and reading and reading and learning and learning and learning. And the more I sort of advance in knowledge in that sphere, the more I have a desire to sort of put my faith and my art and also just my academic knowledge around my faith together with my art. Lorica was sort of the beginning of the pivot into that sphere of things, though obviously Lorica was much more real life focused and not as much, speculative theology focused or anything. But the feature that I made is called Saint Mick, and it's very much an expression of religious exploration and of faith and doubt and all those things. It's sort of a meditation on that period of time. Most people who are raised religious sort of go through a period of time, usually in high school or college, or sometimes right after, where you're sort of becoming your own person, right? And you need to figure out, hey, I was given all this stuff growing up. I've sort of just had it as a part of me without questioning it. What parts of this are going to continue into my identity as I become my own person? What parts am I, again, bring the word back, deconstructing? What parts am I keeping? What parts am I throwing away? And so Saint Mick is sort of a meditation on that question and on that passage of time and period of exploration personified in a monastery. So the main character is a nun, and she's what's called a novitiate, which basically means you're like a nun in training, but you haven't taken like the main vows yet. And she's basically trying to figure out, am I staying or am I going? And the other characters in the monastery and elsewhere all sort of are dealing with that question in their own way as well. But that's the focus of the film, and it is very me.
Excellent. I gotta golf clap just the concept and the reality of right we of questioning. I come from a tradition of questioning, right? I find faith more rewarding when somebody, instead of just being all in on whatever they taught me as a kid, I believe wholeheartedly without question. I'm like, I'm not sure I trust your faith. Whereas what you just described,
Yeah.
which is, because we're force fed, it's all right. It's a very funny realization in high school
Yeah.
or college when you say to yourself, there's other religions. Like the only reason I believe in this is because I was born in North America to these parents. Like if I'd been born on another continent, I would have been told that that was the holy book. And it's like, you gotta question and learn and make it your own.
Yeah, too many of us are raised in a faith or in a specific, a religion as diverse as Christianity. You're raised in a particular segment of it, and you think of the entirety of Christianity as defined by the narrow parameters of your specific tradition. So for a lot of, I know for a lot of Christian kids, it's not even, excuse me, that you grow up and you realize, oh, there's other religions. It's you grow up and you realize, oh, there's other perspectives within Christianity that are deeply different from the ones I think are the fundamentals. I'm I'm continuously thankful for the way I was raised in regards to faith, where I was very much raised in a faith and in a tradition, but I at no point in my life ever felt like I was going to be demonized or ostracized or I was in danger if I was asking questions or if I was doubting or if I was exploring. And as I grew into adulthood and spoke to others and heard other experiences, that is not the norm, at least not in a lot of the circles that I grew up in. And so I had the privilege of when I started getting into the academic study of things and started having a lot of just things I'd always believed for no particular reason challenged and overturned because the evidence didn't support them. I never felt like I was having a severe faith crisis in letting those things go and reappraising my own beliefs. I was able to go through a lengthy period of deconstructing and reconstructing my beliefs and my faith and coming out of it not feeling traumatized, which is how so many people feel because they feel like they're getting rid of these fundamental building blocks of their reality. I was able to explore freely and come out feeling not only like I was better informed, but like my faith was in a stronger and more genuine and more true place than it had ever been. And I count myself deeply privileged for that experience because again, I can't tell you how many times I've heard stories of kids, not even like just the mildest of doubts being demonized and treated as a lack of faith and an offense against God, and like all these things that condition them against ever challenging anything that they hold to be true for any reason. And it can be so difficult when you've been raised that way to find a healthy approach, especially if you want to maintain your faith. That's why so many people, when they end up deconstructing those things, they just leave completely. And that's completely understandable, because if you're taught that these tiny things are actually the fundamental building blocks of reality, and then you find no good reason to believe those things, well, why should you keep any of it? So anyway, I could ramble on that forever, but
No, and
that's
I could tell you so many stories. Maybe when we stop recording, I'll tell you one, really
sure.
one that you will love. I'll tell you a rabbi story that you will love. And also, and you're also, what you're pointing out is that, well, I feel that you're also indirectly pointing out that the people who don't question it, actually, I think it kind of does train their mind not to question anything. And then those are the people who, you know, uh, don't believe that the a virus is real. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, no,
Like
honestly,
you can, like they just go by what authority says, and they're serfs in a way.
I joke sometimes that people who are raised in like ultra fundamentalist Catholic households either grow up to be the most militant atheists you'll ever meet, or fundamentalist Catholics. It's like
Yeah.
but I mean, if you're only ever taught how to operate in extremes, you'll never learn how to operate with nuance. And yeah, that manifests in a lot of destructive ways, in a lot of capacities beyond somebody's religious faith.
And it literally teaches someone, a young mind, not to see shades of gray, but to see everything in a dichotomy of black and white. And it's just
Well,
I don't find it very healthy.
Well, and especially when you're conditioned from an early age to view things like science, or institutions, or secular democracy as not just something beyond the realm of your particular belief, but as antagonists to it. We've got this bizarre martyr complex in America, where you've got middle class, privileged evangelical people who are convinced that we're like minutes away from the next great Roman purge of the Christians. When in reality, I mean, we live in a country where Christianity is still like, or at least the sort of, cultural folk Christianity that is American Christianity, is by far the dominant cultural force. I mean, there are certainly elements of like entertainment, or I guess, in some ways education that are not as held in that sway. But I mean, it's lunacy to me that you can look around the world and see genuine examples of religious persecution of Christians in countries. There are places where you will die for being a Christian. And yet, Barbara in South Carolina, somebody said a mean thing about a mean meme she posted, and she's convinced, she's on her knees being stoned to death as Stephen from Acts. Like it's honestly, it's insulting to me. But okay, I'll stop ranting.
I'm with you. No, my first visit to the Carolinas around 15 years ago, when there were billboards of a woman with a veil and it said no Sharia law. And I was like, the Christmas music starts like the weekend after Halloween. Like,
Well,
like I'm pretty sure we're not becoming, yeah, this is a very Christian nation. So yeah, I don't understand the martyr complex, but unless you feel that if you don't have 100%, yeah, it's not good enough. I
well,
suppose,
and again, it's
suppose
just
that's where they set the bar.
it's insulting to Christians around the world, and it's insulting to our predecessors in Christian history. Like, this faith was born as a faith of slaves and outcasts and martyrs. And we're used to thinking of Christianity in terms of cultural dominance, because that's the era we live in. And obviously institutions like the Catholic Church have had such a heavy hand in history for such a long time. But it's really easy to forget that for the first 300-400 years of the church's existence, it was a fringe thing of people who were mostly killed in droves.
And it sounds like they were in Turkey. Turkey,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? Like it wasn't actually, we've been kicked out of Jerusalem, right? Like spread around the Roman Empire, but mostly around that.
There's
Yeah,
a
history is yeah.
Yeah, there's an early church. One of the most famous theologians in the history of church, especially in the Western church, you probably heard of him, a guy named Augustine of Hippo, or Augustine. No one can agree how to pronounce his name. But he's a favorite among several streams of the faith, especially more what are called Reformed traditions. And I won't get into all that, but the short version is there's an unfortunate overlap in certain streams of fundamentalist Christianity with white nationalist movements and things like that, who think that, Christian history is this European white whatever thing, and it leads to hilarious situations where you have like white nationalists on podcasts or in debates talking about, this is a real quote I saw, I don't know who the guy was, where he said something along the lines of, Africa will never produce a theologian of the quality of St. Augustine. Well, Augustine was from North Africa. He was African, so it shows the disconnect between the actual history and the perception of the brand in the modern day.
Yeah, I know. You mean I'll resist bringing I'll resist shifting us to other people who horribly misinterpret what should be, well, whatever. What is an honorable faith, and then people are like, "Well, I'm pretty sure it's in the Bible that an interracial couple can't rent my ballroom." So
I don't think so, but
it's
but,
like your own pastor just had to correct you, and you're still not sure. Like
Yeah.
the person who is, I know it's rough. It's rough.
it's a lot. But anyway,
People always want to project their own prejudices onto their beliefs. And
absolutely, and that's not unique to Christianity, and that's not unique to the modern day. That's how humans.
If
have always
anything,
been.
Christianity takes a lot of tough hits from the assholes of the world because for being dominant.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
being-
100%. Well, yeah. Again, the association with institutional and all the sort of myths that have come from like neo-paganism revivals that like there's all these legends about the Catholic Church doing this, that, and the other, which the Catholic Church committed plenty of historical atrocities, but there's also a lot of really popular ones that are just made up, because it kind of sounds right, But yeah, no, I mean, like, listen, I would love to have a movie where I just have three characters sitting in a room talking about all this stuff for an hour and a half, but I don't think anyone would watch that movie.
I don't know, it'd be a nice take on the Dinner with Andre concept.
That's true. That's true.
For instead of being about the arts for an hour and a half, it could be about, but it would have to be longer.
Yeah, no. Well, so Mick is the next best thing in my head, where it's less about characters sitting around and having lengthy discussions about this, that, and the other, and more, sort of a series of subjects that can be approached up to the first question being asked, but we don't really answer a lot of those questions or take things beyond there. We're just sort of showing people at different stages in life going through those experiences in their own way. And I'm very excited about it. I'm very
sounds fantastic. I feel the need to share one last thing, which is that one of the geniuses of this country we were born in is the separation of church and state. But one of the most interesting things that was explained to me by, I believe it was actually a person, a religious leader, was that it actually protects the religion as much or more than, it's not protecting the state from religion. It's actually protecting the religion from the burden of running a state, which is a corrupting influence. Anytime you are running a political state, the religion falls flat because you can't actually make all those. It harms the faith.
It forces compromises. Yeah, compromises in the values of the faith, and it also forces when you have a religion like Christianity. Let's say the Christian nationalists get their wish, and we have a theocracy. The question then becomes, which Christianity do we run according to the Catholics? Do we run according to the Reformed? Do we run according to the Charismatics? Like these are not consistent in their principles, but it is. I think it is a corruptive influence. My favorite fact to share on that is, again, Christianity was a very persecuted religion for the first 3 centuries or so of its existence, but eventually it became legalized in Rome, and in the year 380 it became the official state religion. The first executions for heresy were in 385. It took 5 years before the religion of the persecuted began persecuting and murdering people that disagreed with it. It happens that fast.
It's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. Well, you have whet my appetite for. Do I know the title of the feature?
Saint Mick is the name.
Saint Mick. I do know the title. Is Saint Mick played by someone I know?
I don't
Oh
think
no.
she was in. No, the actress's name is Celine Phillips. I don't think she was in any of the stuff at. But everyone, I'm trying to think. I think everyone in Lorica except Brian, who played the priest. He was busy today. I wanted him. And in Bearing Baby, every actor in both of those movies is in Mick in some capacity. Jess plays a character. Gloria plays a character. Maddie's sort of just in the ensemble, but she's there. She has a couple scenes. Curtis has a couple scenes. Yeah, so they're all there. So you'll see a lot of familiar faces from those two shorts in
You
this
know,
movie.
there's something so cool about the whole repertory company vibe that
Yeah,
one
yeah.
can have at the indie level. That every once in a while you get a team that will make a couple films together at a bigger level, and it's. I just wish they would realize how important it was that Hope and Crosby made all those road films, man. Like there is value to keeping teams together and just bringing them back and playing different roles and playing with it. I just find that I don't know. I love that as an audience member.
Oh, it was a joy of this movie because it was a big ensemble cast. So I got to bring in like all my people pretty much. It was so fun. It's so fun having them all in the same project, because a lot of time with shorts, you have very limited capacity for how many actors you can put in there. So I've like I said, I have like that company in my head of all the people that I work with, but there's very few occasions where I get to put them all in the same thing. And then, yeah, crew wise, I mean, I've been working with the same core crew for, I don't even know how many years now. And there's no one else I want to work with. They're the best of the best.
Fantastic. All right. Well, hey, uh, website, social media. Are there? Should we throw clickable links in the show notes?
Yes, I'll send you some links, but generally, if you Google Benty, that's Bennty, that's where you'll find me. Benty.com. My Substack's Benty.substack.com. My social media handles are mostly Benty. I have a production company, which just one of those LLC deals called Bit Sized Productions. All of those websites and stuff will redirect to my website. So look for any of that stuff. You'll find me. I'm a Google search away.
Excellent. Sounds good. All right. Well, I will do my wrap up. First of all, I'll thank you. Thank you, Ben, for taking this time.
Thank you for having
And
me.
been a pleasure. Once again, you had a film at Sherman Oaks Film Festival called Bearing Baby, and then 6 months later, Lorica at Filmvasion Los Angeles. So, everyone, thank you for listening. If you want to learn more about this, like and subscribe to the podcast. Why not? Heck, maybe even write a review. I throw this in at the end of every time. Kindness rewards the person being kind as much or more than the person you're being kind to. So just keep that in mind. Kindness is power. Being an asshole actually makes you powerless. Being kind makes you powerful. I feel like I need to say that in 2025.
Yeah, what's the new Superman movie? Kindness is the real punk rock.
Oh, really? I haven't seen it yet.
That was fun. It was a blast. I liked it.
Okay. Well, maybe. All right. So, to learn more about this podcast, go to discoverindiefilm.com. On social media, it's always at DIFWins. I have personally quit social media and I'm happy about it.
You should. I envy you.
It's pretty awful, but my wonderful podcast producer Karina does check the social media accounts. I'm actually on Blue Sky, so no one has ever done it. But if you ask a question, if you go to @DIFWins on Blue Sky, I'm the one who sees that. And if you go to discoverindiefilm.org, that is the nonprofit that runs the two aforementioned film festivals. We hold Filmvasion LA every June. We just had the 10th anniversary. Sherman Oaks Film Festival is every December. So that one's ShermanOaksFF.com, and it's at ShermanOaksFF on social media. Filmvasion LA is, of course, FilmInvasionLA.com, at FilmInvasionLA on social media. And they are getting a cousin. In January 2026, Film Invasion Lima, Peru is on.
Interesting.
Right? So I'll be flying to Lima when it is winter here and summer there.
I see the strategy.
It was chosen by the team down in Lima. It was very cool. So, Ben, thank you again.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for listening.